All right, just to confirm for the listeners who we got on the phone here, it is the one and only King Yoof. Am I saying that right?
That's correct. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are things on the east side of the Atlantic this day?
They're good. They're really good. It's all
Oh,
good over here, man.
that's awesome. I gotta ask. I don't ask most people this, but where did the name come from?
Oh man, God. This goes back when I was a kid. I think because I always hanged around with a lot of older people, so that's how I kind of was getting into raves at a younger age. So a lot of my mates would call me youth, or things like that. It's always been named as sort of young because I looked young. And then I was doing a project back in 99, 2000. It's like a little breakbeat thing, and it was called Uncouth Youth. Um, and then I did a thing that was just youth, and that was actually like a thing. I had a release on Ghost Records, which was LB's label, because I used to do a lot of work with Jada Flex, which was all sort of early prototype dubstep. It was like dubstep, but we didn't really know it was going to be called dubstep. It had gone on from like the dark garage and that,
Sure.
and I was recording under the name Youth, and I featured on a couple of the Ghost Records well, I featured on one of their albums, which featured Burial, Zed Bias, just a whole heap of like legends really, and I don't know even know why I got on that album, but there was a lot of legends, and I was good friends with Jada Flex from back in the day, who was seen as sort of one of the pioneers of that whole dubstep movement and that. So it went from there, and then I think then they ended up doing King Youth, which was when I signed to Substrays, and that's when I was doing sort of like 140 jungle, kind of this experimental crossover. I don't know, it was like a hybrid of jungle and dubstep and stuff like that. And I had various releases on there and a couple of big tracks. One of them was Back to Hackney. Did really well. And
Let me ask you something.
ever
Hold on.
since then,
I don't mean to cut you off, but you said something that's grabbed my attention. Um,
yeah.
you said 140 drum and bass.
Yeah,
What do you
the
mean by
like
that?
140 jungle beat sort of stuff.
I thought jungle had to spin between 170 to 180. You're telling me jungle can spin at 140?
Well, it was kind of, it was. I grew up through sort of early hardcore. So when it had gone from like acid house, it had gone through like this rave thing, and it was called hardcore back in the days. It's not what is possessed with what people deem as hardcore now, which is like 180 BPM banging, sort of like cheesy
Rotterdam.
wavy pianos. Yeah, it was sort of like house tempo, which was like 135, and then it was like break beats and like reggae samples, things like Lenny D Ice. We
Yep.
Are E was that was a like a 130 kind of early prototype jungle tune, and Renegade Soundwave, perfect example of artists that it was just before things started speeding up, and I was kind of really like, I love that era, and I love that whole sort of sound. So when I was asked to do a project on this label called Substars, I ended up making that kind of stuff again, just updated and with a newer sound in production, and it did really well. It was at a time when. Hello,
Hey, sorry about that. We cut out. That's my fault.
hello.
Can you hear me?
That's all right, man. That's all good.
That's my WhatsApp kicking in. So I'm sorry. Please go on with what you were saying.
So yeah, it was kind of a time that dubstep was just peaking, because I remember Casper, he was out playing a lot, and he would be dropping some of my stuff in his set, and a lot of dubstep DJs were like kind of mixing up some of my stuff in there and that, which was kind of nice. And I always was into never being pigeonholed into one thing. That's kind of always been my beauty. I think Nicky Black Market kind of he went, you're just like a music man. You're not kind of stuck in a niche of scenes. You know, if I make something, I make it to the best of my advantage. But I'm not one of those that's going to churn out a million tracks in that one genre. You know, because I get bored with it. I get bored with things. I like music in general. That's what I love, and I love very much reggae-based music. You know,
Sure.
so my productions from jungle to reggae to 140 kind of stuff. And, I produced a dub album 2 years ago on Moonshine Records, which was all live session players. And I just wanted to do like an original dub album, like how they used to do it on the boards, like King Tubby's did it and stuff like that. But it all set. That's where all jungle comes from. You know what I'm saying? It all stems from that culture of reggae and dub, and so everything I suppose I've made has been based on that kind of low frequency style music and way of making things. And that reflects back also into my jungle. So.
Let me ask you this then. You're talking about 140 being the hardcore acid house kind of predecessor or prelude to jungle drum and bass. Who would you say was the first one that hit the pitch? Like, who was the first one that inspired you to want to do 170, 180 rather than keeping it at the 140?
That inspired me to do 170 stuff, or just music in general?
The 170 stuff.
It's funny because I've always been making it, but I've never really I've always been more of a fan of it. And I've always sort of I grew up through the raves. I was going Jungle Fever and things like that in the 90s,
Sure.
and I always remained and wanted to be a fan. But I suppose when I first met Jackie Murder from Chopstick, and he'd come over to the UK. He was living in London. We ended up moving into my studio, and that's where we recorded the first Mr. Williams album on Chopstick. And that was kind of then when Jackie was like, yo, you should be, making this stuff because you're actually pretty good at it. And that's when I joined Chopstick Dubplate and become a member of it. So, yeah, I'd say, Jackie Murder, Aries, definitely, who pushed me to make it. And it was only recently where I've started releasing my actual solo stuff outside of Chopstick. I just released a track for Biological Beats and also for Nicky Black Market's label. And it's people like Nicky Black Market that have pushed me, that are like, yo, you got this kind of drum and bass jungle stuff that you're doing, and you're just sitting on it, and it's like really good. And I suppose it's taking other people to, go, yeah, I'm really into it for me to finally release it, With Chopstick, it's different because it's a team between us, and we make the tunes between us and stuff. So it's kind of a bit different with that. But yeah, definitely those guys were who pushed me to make the 170 stuff and move into that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know what? I'm kind of jumping around with the questions. I said I was going to start off with some fun ones to get to know you.
That's so good, man.
So I am going to rewind a little here, and I'm going to ask you a couple just fun personal questions, okay?
Yeah, man.
What was your favorite animated series growing up as a kid?
Oh, damn. Oh, what's my favourite animated series? God, that is oh, man.
Well, and here's the thing. I like to not just say cartoon because I know Sesame Street. I don't know if you guys got that out there, but it's...
Yeah, no, I grew up, I love Sesame Street. I grew up on that. That's how I learned my ABCs, you know what I mean?
That's how I learned how to pronounce the word youth.
Okay, yeah.
You know what? It's one thing I was going to say. You guys could do so much more fun things with your spelling because of your accent. Someone here in Canada, what is youth? It's youth. You enunciate, child. But you get the Cockney accent or whatever over there, and you guys can say whatever you want. But no, like another one is Muppets. Do you remember the Muppets?
Yeah, of course, man. mate. I was a big Jim Henson fan. I
There you
loved all that
go.
stuff.
So it's the Sesame Street Jim Henson, right? Muppets Jim Henson. I was a huge Jim Henson fan myself, so we share in
Yeah,
that. Man who was taken too early, right? Another.
totally, man.
Um,
Totally.
okay, what was the first concert you ever attended? Not rave, but like actual concert.
Oh, damn. Well, I was lucky because I was brought up by my uncle, and my uncle was a huge reggae fan. And this is where like the whole reggae thing coming into it. My uncle was enthusiastic record buyer and used to get all this stuff imported from Jamaica. I was also living in Lewisham in London, which is southeast London, and the local reggae sound system was the famous Saxon Sounds. And my uncle was good friends with Dennis Rao, who is also the owner of Saxon Sounds. And so I used to go to a lot of the early community dances that were put on by Saxon, because they used to have during the day it was sort of like more of a family affair. So, they'd be cooking all the traditional Jamaican food, all the rice and peas and the jerk chicken and that, and they'd have the sound system on, and kids could go to these things, and then kind of later on in the evening, it was more for the adults. But there was a particular concert, which was a famous reggae concert, which was known as Reggae Sunsplash, and I went to the famous one at Crystal Palace in London in 1984, and I saw Dennis Brown live, and it's recorded on the internet, and I'm actually appearing in the actual footage, and it's crazy
I found
because
it.
they say like there's like 20,000 rastas, and then there's me and my
You're like
uncle.
Waldo. You're like the Waldo of the festival, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm like this little kid with blonde hair and ice pop and that, and it was amazing because to see Dennis, and looking back, I've seen the footage as well. I've got it, and everyone says it's one of Dennis Brown's best live performances, and it wasn't just Dennis Brown on the day. It was they had Sly and Robbie was playing. I think Aswad was there, and it was all presented by David Rodigan, because at the time he was on Capital Radio, and he was kind of the go-to for listening to reggae music on radio. And so yeah, that was my first concert, was the Reggae Sunsplash 1984 with Dennis Brown headlining. There you
That's
go.
no, it's awesome. And I did find it as you were talking. I looked it up. I found a video, a 6.5 minute clip. So I'm sure you're somewhere in there.
I think it's about 30 seconds in.
Is that right?
If
Okay,
I
I'll take a
remember.
look. Unfortunately, I don't have
Yeah.
someone helping me, or we'd have it queued up and we'd be running it while you were talking. Um, okay, so that was your first experience with a concert. What was your first experience with, let's say, either sounds? Well, that was kind of sound system esque, but let's say the rave. What was your first rave experience?
Okay. Let me think. See now. Um, I moved from Lewisham, and I moved kind of a bit further out of London. And my friends there were older. Well, they were about 3 years older than me, and they were going to early raves like Seduction, World Dance, all the early raves, and they used to take me to them. So the first couple of raves, I can't actually remember the names of them, but I do remember going World Dance at Lid Airport. That was one of the first ones I went to. Um, and I was also going to a lot of the early free party stuff, like Spiral Tribe was one of the crews that used to put on stuff. They were famous. They were the guys that did that big Castle Morton rave and stuff. And so I was kind of between the big warehouse raves, like, Telepathy and Jungle Fever and all those kinds of things. But I was also going to Spiral Tribe and all kind of like the early free party stuff as well.
That's awesome. Okay, well, my next question we kind of answered. We were going to talk about who inspired you to want to create, but what I want to get into is the fact that you do create. Do you think that a producer must also be a DJ to be successful in today's industry?
Um, it's a weird one. I think now
Bless you.
because of the fact that you, it's weird because with the fact that you don't make as much money with digital sales, that you're kind of forced into this thing of having to perform to make the money, and that's why producers will go out and DJ, and some might not feel comfortable in DJing and stuff. It's a really weird one. I think I've been lucky enough that I've made enough money from production and being producer and stuff like that, and being able to adapt. I think in this day and age you have to be able to adapt your skill, and I engineer for people. I even ghostwrite for people. And I think if you can manage that kind of juggle them kind of skills, and everyone's got to have that hustle in music, then you don't have to rely on being a DJ. You know what I'm saying? And me personally, I don't rely on being a DJ. I've got no need to do that. And I think with that as well, I can be a bit more selective in who or where I'm playing. And I feel sometimes maybe some DJs have to it's almost like whoring themselves out. They might not play a place that they might not necessarily feel comfortable or want to play, or there might be something there, but they have to do it. I remember, back in the day, obviously when it was vinyl and you could sell a few thousand and be happy. I used to go on holiday every time with the amount of vinyl that we used to ship. It's crazy. I think my first record, we sold over 150,000 units.
Wow.
On my first ever record.
Good for you.
That kind, that's the difference from what it is nowadays. It's crazy. I think you have to look at other ways of making money in the industry. You got to have your hustle on. And you got to be doing different stuff with different people. I'm kind of lucky because I've been doing music such a long time that I've got a good reputation with production and engineering, and I do a lot of work for various other artists, and that's all. It's kind of that keeps me afloat.
Sure. What would you say about the equipment you began producing on compared to what you're using today? How has it changed?
The workflow is a lot more quicker now, because back in the day when, especially I remember I had two 3200 Akai samplers, and to do just like a basic time stretch, that could take like up to an hour for it to process. So you're kind of like, oh, right, what do I do now? I'm going to go and, I don't know, roll a joint or go and have a cup of tea or have some lunch or something. It kind of stopped that workflow, whereas now everything's so instant that you can, you've got that real good workflow, and the writing just comes easy. I feel maybe it's not so much experimental now, because back then you was kind of like, you was accidentally stumbling on things. You'd go, oh, that sounds brilliant, and you probably didn't even know how you did it. It's just some accident or something. Whereas now things are a little bit, do this, do that, and it makes this, and especially with the internet now. I think back in I remember that was one of the things that kind of fascinated me about especially jungle music, because each week there'd be like a new technique or a new thing that you'd hear on a record. A good example was when they started doing the big time stretching the vocals, like what the time you have their dread and all them kind of things. And I'd be like, how the fuck did they make that? And because you didn't have the internet, nobody knows, and these producers weren't going to be telling people their secrets. So it was almost like this real mystery to the music that was kind of exciting. And sometimes I feel that gets lost because people just go, oh, how do I do that effect? Right, type in Google, and then it comes up with a tutorial on YouTube on how to make a drum break or how to process this, or it's that weird world between the two, and I think it's a lot easier for people to get into music now, and that definitely. And obviously, it's a lot cheaper. My first studio cost me 20 grand. I think my studio now is like 5 grand, if that. Now, so
It's probably a lot more software nowadays than it is all the hardware you used to have, right?
oh yeah, and that was the thing. That's where the big change was from. All the analog equipment. God, and I spent thousands on analog equipment that is now you can get for a few $100, in a software form. But it's good. I think we have to embrace technology. I hear people that go, "Well, it ain't like how it." You got to embrace it, and that's the thing with it. You just got to embrace it. And I still love the people that are even resorting going back to the old equipment and stuff. I see somebody making on like old Amigas and stuff like that, and it's cool. I like that.
No, I'm for it.
It's mad.
I think if you can, you should. If you can't, it's okay because there's equipment that you can use because you can't afford otherwise. But if you have the money.
I was Remark Studio a month ago, and he's still got a lot of his old equipment as well as his new setup, and he's still running and that. And he was saying to me, I'd love to do an EP project like how I used to do it, and getting the old archives up, and I see he's got like the old 950 in there, and it's fascinating. I think if you can combine the best of both worlds, and that's it. I just think music's music, and I think that was one of the things when I was doing my dub album and recording live session players and recording it like a band. That it doesn't matter if it's good you're making it, and no matter how you've made it, it's just music, and I think that's always been my thing, is to record in different ways and recording live or working in a programmed way. It's all different, and if you're coming up with good music, because it's good music.
Well, at least it's music. We won't give it the good point. You know what? There's a saying by Andy Warhol. I don't know it verbatim, but it was something like, for an artist, don't worry about if what you're doing is good or bad art, or if it's even art at all. Just let the rest of the world figure that out while you go out and make more art. So I think the same thing about what you were just saying about music is just keep pumping it out, man. As long as it's coming from the right place. Like to me, a primary incentive must be to make good music. If you're trying to make money, you're going to make shitty music. But if you're trying to make great music, you might make some money. So your motives have to be in the right place. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah, totally.
What is your involvement with Moonshine Recordings?
That's where I recorded that. Basically, that's where I recorded and put out my dub album, which was called Homage to the King.
So what did they help you with exactly? Did they help you with the distribution and marketing, or did they help you with the actual pressing of the album?
They did everything. They pressed the album, they distributed it.
Wow.
And they funded the project.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was really good. It was a full dub album. It was, I had session players in, live bass player, live horns, and I got to record with, some cool people that I've known for years. L16, legendary reggae singer that I've known for so many years, and we've always talked about doing some music together. And my good friend Spee from Dread Zone, who also features on there, and it did really well. It was pressed on vinyl, that sold straight away, and it's only now that we've kind of put it out onto the streaming format. So now you can listen to it on YouTube and stuff like that, and it's worked out really well because it's kind of become quite a sought after album, And the guys at Moonshine are excellent label. So big up to Mac and all the guys over there, because they really run a tight ship. Excellent label. and you know, they really pushed the vinyl thing as well. So hats off to them guys.
Yeah, big ups on that. I like the originality. I looked them up a little before you and I spoke, and it looked like a very professional outlet. Um,
Yep.
the thing is, I will have links below as always. So if you guys want to hear that album, it just click down below. Obviously, I got to ask you, how did you get involved with the Chopstick family?
Oh wow. Jackie Murder, who's the sound owner of Chopstick. He got in touch with me when I was doing the 140 Jungle, and he was like, "Dude, I love what you're doing." Blah 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 blah. And then one day I got a knock at my front door, and Jackie's standing there with his laptop under his arm, and he ended up staying at my house for 2 weeks, and we was just making like loads of jungle. And he kind of was in. I kind of knew about Chopstick anyway, but then you know he bought all the tunes, all his dub plates, and you know he was fanatical about voicing reggae artists, and so we instantly had a connection. And then he was like, "Oh, I need to get a studio space." Because I'm going to record the Mr. Williams album, and I had a space in Deptford in southeast London with a vocal booth and that, and he ended up moving in, and sort of the rest is history. Eventually, he asked me to join Chopstick Dubplate with Aries and Toughest, and it was I became the fourth member in it. So. I've been on there. Oh, how long have I been on Chopstick now? Yeah, good 6 years now, 5, 6 years.
Wow.
So, yeah,
That's awesome.
no, it's a good team, and to be honest with you, it's it's more, I think, the humour between us. You know, Jack's hilarious. We've all got like our own little humour, and
Well, it's funny. Hold on. It's funny you say that because my next question was going to be, can you share a funny memory of Aries? But give me one of each of you. Like I want to hear a funny story. Give me a memory.
Oh man, there's just too many. Usually it's just studio. You know, if you put a camera in the studio, I'm surprised how we got any work done because we're just sitting there like in absolute tears, and it just the humour is just, you know, it's just stupid, and we're kind of like, sometimes I compare us as I don't know, it's like Spinal Tap of jungle. It's like some of the you know, just trying to get to shows and stuff, and we're like Jack's like, we're on the wrong train or something. Like, it's just Spinal Tap, and if you've ever watched that movie,
Oh, of course.
then you'll understand.
Of course.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's kind of Chopstick Dubplate. But to people outside, they're like, oh yeah, there's this mad ragga jungle sound system with bare dubplates and blah, blah, and it's just like a bunch of middle-aged white dudes that are fanatics about reggae music but also love jungle, and you know, that's us. And you know, I ain't gonna apologise for that. That's me, and that's Jack, and we love the music. And you know, Jack's background with how he grew up, and he was in Brooklyn, in New York, and he had that whole voicing studio and cutting, you know, dub plate plant there and stuff, and the stories he'd tell me about all the artists he worked with, and you know, to me, that's what I love. It's all about the experiences and the stories that you go through, and you treasure them. That's worth more than any money, you know. And it's all those things, and that's what was fascinating with Jack and with Chopstick is the history and the heritage of it, and it's very different from the traditional jungle thing. You know, it is a jungle sound, and it's run in the same way that a reggae sound system's run. It's a team of people and a team of producers, and that's how it runs, and that's how I've grown up with Steve. That's where the relation with being around sounds like Saxon and stuff, that's my understanding. That's how, you know, and so when it's translated into a jungle sound system, then it's the, you know, it's the same thing. So yeah.
I'm with you. Before I ask this question, I got to ask if you're familiar with the monument I'm talking about. Are you familiar with Mount Rushmore, the four faces of
Yeah,
the...
man.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to create a Mount Rushmore for the jungle drum and bass industry, who would your four faces
Uh-huh.
be?
Oh, oh man. Um, I'd say that's hard. How many people is there? Four, five.
Yeah, you got to... You know what? I'll give you five. If you want five, I'll let you put a fifth face. But it's supposed to be
Um,
four.
I would say
I love listening to people struggle.
Lenny Diaz, Remark, um, oh man, I can't. It's Mickey Finn.
Okay.
See, and then I'd have to say Shut Up and Dance. But then there would be a bunch, say Eastman from Cool FM.
Hmm?
Do you know what? And I'm good friends with PJ and Smiley from Shut Up and Dance, and this is yet again like where I'd be sitting with them and they'd give me the whole history of like back in the day. It's always like back in the day, you know, and you got to think that whole jungle thing was kind of out of this one area that was in Hackney, and it was like Shut Up and Dance and DJ Hype and Daddy L, who is Smiley's, I think it's his brother. They're related. Anyway, they had their little sound system, and then Rebel MC, which is Conganati, he had his own little sound. And then there was Eastman, who owns Cool FM, and he had his sound. And then there was like people like Paul Ibiza, who had his thing. And so they were all playing. This was sort of like late 80s, so they would be playing soul, reggae, hip hop. You know, it was like the early urban music, and then that's when it went into the acid house and the Belgian sound, and then it got into that prototype jungle, and you know, so that's where those people that I've said they're the whole pioneer, that whole kind of where it started from. And I'd say it was kind of that's the Hackney area, you know.
No, I'm with you. And I have to say, like, having these conversations is what I've loved. Is I learn something from guys like yourself every time I talk. So
Yeah.
I love hearing different perspectives too about the origins, the transition from hardcore acid house into what we call jungle today.
Yeah.
We all seem to. Well, not, sorry, go
Because
ahead.
there is no one person that invented it. There might, you know, I hear it all the time. Oh, I've invented it. There was no one person. It was a scene of people that were doing it, you know. And that's the beauty of jungle. It had different branches, so you'd have that kind of atmospheric stuff that Bookham was doing. And then you'd like have the ragga jungle, let's say Mickey Finn, and that kind of that roast sound. You know what I mean?
Well, it's
Kenny
funny you bring up
Kane
Bookham because, and then Mickey Finn. So when I spoke to Aphrodite, he said that he actually would give Bookham credit for creating the bass line that we know today, the rolling bass.
Yeah.
He said. Now, to me, when I think of jungle, I think of Aphrodite. So for Aphrodite to have said that about Bookham, I've got to give Bookham the grandfather of drum and bass jungle. I have to. So that's, to me, that's got to be one of the main four. Like, and to be honest, I've never seen the guy live, and never had the pleasure of talking to him. The one thing I'll say, which is kind of a sidebar, is I was lucky enough to be featured in a copy of Knowledge magazine back in 2005, and the article that they did on me was right next to an article about LTJ Bookham. And I remember like showing my buddy, like, dude, I'm on the same page as LTJ Bookham. And that's the closest I've ever gotten, though. And the man's a legend. So if any of my listeners know him, please put us in contact. I'd love to talk to him. But yeah, I have to say that he is definitely one of the grandfathers. And Aphrodite, like, wouldn't you say Mickey Finn, but wouldn't you put Aphrodite in that same category?
See, it's mad because I was signed to a major label in '94. I was signed to Warner Brothers, And Aphrodite was living in the same town as me, and and I actually got him to remix one of my first band's singles, and it came out on Warner Brothers, and that's where then Aphrodite then went on to do all the Wishing on the Star remixes, I got 5 on it.
Yeah, I got 5 on it.
Because of the connection through me at Warner Brothers.
No way. Well, and you know what? When I asked him, like, how did you get to the mainstream ear? Because the way that I found out about Aphrodite was through my father, and it was from HMV. Because at that point, all I had were jungle tapes that I had gotten from like AWOL or from One Nation, and Aphrodite wasn't spinning those. So the first time I heard Aphrodite was a commercial album that came through HMV, and it was Aftershock. You remember the Aftershock album?
Yeah.
And obviously, I knew songs like No Diggity. I knew I got 5 on it. I knew songs that he had made, but I didn't know it was him. That was the first time I had his name and these songs. You know what I mean? But he didn't say, well, King Yoof hooked me up. He did tell me though.
Well, it was because he wouldn't at the time. It wouldn't have. See, it's funny because actually I was out in Spain with Gavin about 2 months ago.
His name is Aphrodite. We don't know Gavin. There is no Gavin.
See, I know him as Gavin, and
that's all good.
It was the first remix, the first commercial remix was my band, and it was a band called JPAC, and it was called Rock and Roll Doll was the single that he remixed, and it actually did really well on the underground, and the A&R team were so happy with the result of the remix because it was like, they're spending like 20 grand on Armand Van Helden and stuff like that, which was just like crazy. And then you've got like this jungle producer that's smashing it, getting more plays and more thing than any of these like big house producers. And that was when they got to do the As remix, Wishing on a Star, and then like I said, 5 on it and all of that. So that's where it all sort of came through. And obviously he went on to do a lot more commercial stuff after that. And
wouldn't you also say though that his bass line like that, I don't know how to describe it other than the womp womp, like when you hear an Aphrodite song, you know it's him. And I find a lot of like movies, or when you try and talk to outside of the rave community and try and tell them what jungle is, they think of Aphrodite. That's the sound, right? That whomping bass and that.
Yes.
So
it's very signature sound that he's got. You just got to play like 5 seconds of one of his records, and you go, yeah, that's Aphrodite.
Right.
He's got his formula, and like I said, it was the jungle tunes that would get the licenses in the movies and stuff like that. So you're right. You're definitely right.
Well, okay, I got one final question, one fun one. Let's see if I don't stump you with this one. If you could create a vault or put 5 items into a vault that would encapsulate our rave culture, so in like 20,000 years, these people are going to dig up the vault, and we want them to know what the rave once was, what would you put inside that vault?
Probably it would have to be an ecstasy tablet from the 90s.
Love it. Is there a specific stamp that you liked more, like the yellow Tweety Birds? Was there?
It'd have to be the Love Dove, just to what it represented at the time.
Okay.
So it'd be a Love Dove. I'd say a packet of Rizzlers.
What color? Hold on, what color are they?
See, back in the day, you was limited to the colours of what you had. I think it was like blue.
Damn right it was like blue. Blue, man. It's got to be blue. I remember, who was it who had... There was someone who had a rhyme about that. Rizzlers must be blue. Green Rizzlers said he won't do too. I forget who it was.
I'd never forget, because the Rat Pack did the song Searching for My Rizzler. And I remember that being played at my school, because I was at school when that came out. And that got played in the assembly because there was this big sort of anti sort of rave thing going on. You know, it was like acid house is bad, rave culture is bad. And
Sure.
one of the songs they were playing, they played it in the assembly, and the whole crowd everyone was just in tears. So that would always remind me of the Rizla. So yeah, out to Everson for still searching for his Rizla. What else would I put in the vault?
So far, these people would just think that they've got a bunch of drug addicts. They've got a pack of rolling papers and an ecstasy pill. Let's. So did they listen to anything? I don't know, but they took a lot of drugs.
And I would put one of the old Jungle Fever flyers in.
Nice.
Because it was I used to like the ones where they made it so you could use it as a mask. And they used to put like mad productions on. I remember one at the Sanctuary, and it, you know, all the MCs were dressed up as gladiators, and it was like this Roman theme, and it was crazy. So definitely that'd be a Cool FM Jungle Fever flyer.
Nice.
The World Dance membership card, which was like, that was the thing to have. If you had the membership, you was like, yeah. That was like,
I didn't know it was a thing. I wish. Do you think anyone still has their old membership cards? Do you think?
Yeah, that was a big thing. The World Dance membership card, man. And I think I still got mine. I had hair then as well. I had a ponytail. So,
You went from a ponytail to a bald head? Oh.
Yeah, I had hair down to my backside. Yeah.
Shit, man.
And then I actually got into the music industry, and then it just all went downhill, and I lost my hair.
Maybe we should put that in the vault. We'll put like your old ponytail in there.
Yeah, but whack the ponytail in, definitely.
No, we're not putting. I want one more item. One more valid rave item, please.
A pair of kickers.
Specific?
Kickers or wallabies, which was the shoes ravers used to wear. So I don't know if you guys are accustomed to kicker boots.
No, I'm personally not, but the people listening maybe, so they can fill me in.
Okay, well, you guys would probably know about wallabies because Clark's make wallabies, and they were they're like a moccasin suede shoe sort of thing. And they were like the in thing, and used to get them in different colours. And there was a shop called Shelley's, and they used to be like the main outlet, and we'd go down there because they would have like these velvet labels that were in different colours that would go on the actual boot, and we used to go down there and steal them, and so kickers and wallabies. So they were going in the vault.
Here, before I let you go, I gotta ask. We're talking about clothes. Did your guys ever wear any of those furry fun clothing? The fun fur.
Fun fur.
Fun fur. It was pants, but they were furry, or they'd wear the gloves and they had fur on them, and they had colors, very colorful stuff. No.
Oh hell no, that's not me.
No, I know it's not you. I could never. Not you. I'm just saying ravers in general. But yeah, I'd love to see you in that getup. Candy kidding up the King Yoof. But anyways, I'm going to sign off to the listeners, but I want to talk to you for a little bit, so stay on the phone with me, okay?
No worries, man.
Well, guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed listening to us as much as I enjoyed the conversation. There will be links below, so if you want to check this man out, click down below. Yep. Till next time, peace out.